So I'll just introduce myself first. Hello, my name is Hazel. I am the Marketing Communications Manager at Northamptonshire Community Foundation. As Alex mentioned, I've been with the charity for 2.5 years now. I joined in January 2023. I cover all of our marketing and comms essentially. So I look at our press, our social media, website, our email newsletter, lots of different things like that. We have a one-person marketing team here, so that's me. I know that a lot of people in the room are in similar positions, or you might have kind of not really one designated marketing person. It might be tacked onto a completely different role. So I'm going to share some slides. They're very brief, and I'll talk about a lot more information. If anyone has any questions at the end, I'm more than happy to try and help and answer them where I can. This is very much aimed at small marketing teams with the intention of trying to support you make as big of an impact with your marketing and your comms as possible. So let me just share my screen. Okay. So I have I have 5 or 6 things that I wanted to cover today. I've tried to kind of put them under different headings. The first one is, as a charity, it's really important to leverage as many free and low cost tools as you can. Being in Northamptonshire especially, it's a very busy space for businesses, for charities. There's lots going on. It's really difficult to get your voice heard. There are lots of tools out there that as a charity you can access for free or for a really low cost that can help support your marketing work. You may have heard of some of these. There's plenty of others that I'm sure I've not mentioned. Canva is the first one. I'm sure a lot of people are using that already. You can use it for free as a non-profit organization. You can sign up on their website. I think it took less than 24 hours for them to come back to us and confirm our kind of free premium membership. As long as you just have one login, which you can then share with the rest of your team, it's a really good tool for creating and storing pieces of marketing and media and things like that. I know a lot of our team use it. You can also set up templates in there, which I'll talk more later about using templates and kind of repurposing content, but it's a really good space to be able to create templates for the rest of your team to then use to take some of the burden off you and to give an ownership to some of your other colleagues to create their own content. Buffer and Hootsuite that are also on this slide there, social media marketing tools. You can get non-profit discount on both of them. We personally use Hootsuite. I'm not sure if there's a huge amount of difference between the two, if I'm perfectly honest. I like to use these kinds of tools because it means that I'm not frantically last minute posting on our social channels day in and day out. It means I can have a schedule, I can plan things. Also makes it really easy to duplicate content that either, if you're doing the build up to an event and you want to mention it several times, you can put it on Hootsuite once and then just duplicate it for a few more dates closer to the time. It also tends to highlight kind of awareness days. Not all of them are relevant to us in the UK. I believe they're both American companies, but they are good. Some of them are good to know. And you can also have all of the inboxes for your social media channels in one place through these tools. So you can see any messages that come in, see things that you've been tagged in one place without having to click through all of the channels that you use a few times a day. The other two that I've listed here, the Marketing Meetup and the Saltways, are really good places to find free resources. The Saltways focus on video content and they work exclusively with charities. So they run monthly free workshops that are about an hour long. They're normally around lunchtime, around different topics, things like how to quickly and effectively edit video content, how to take effective video content on a phone. They have kind of a learning platform that you can pay for if you want to, but their free resources are fantastic. And I'd really recommend, if you're looking at video content creation, their lunchtime classes are really great. They're very, very helpful. And like I say, they work exclusively with charities. So they're much more relatable for us than sometimes the kind of bigger agency corporations that do a lot of work with big businesses and don't really connect on a charity level. The marketing meetup is another kind of place for free resources. They tend to do webinars. They do some in-person networking events if you are working in the marketing field. There's one that I think is hosted fairly regularly at Vulcan Works in Northampton. They run webinars with lots of different people, normally from the corporate space, although they have had some charity kind of heads of marketing, marketing directors, all with different themes. They've covered a lot of information about AI, which obviously is coming more to the forefront of a lot of marketing work potentially. And they're just really useful. They've got a huge bank of pre-recorded webinars on their website. So if there's a topic that you think you'd like to know more about, it could be a good place to start. If I think of any more, I'll let Alex know and we can drop you an email with kind of other places. But ultimately, it's just about leveraging the resources that you can get access to either for free or with a really low cost, especially because we're all very busy and quite often working with sometimes smaller budgets. My second slide is about framing your message. I think a lot of big marketing teams, I've worked in some, really focus on strategy, data, analytics. That's a really fantastic way to work if you have a large marketing team. If you have people who are your analysts who focus on that data, then that can be great. It can be really helpful. It can be a really useful way of structuring your communications plan, for example. If you're a one-person team, if you're a volunteer part-time, you're just smaller team, busier, it's not, in my view, the most effective use of your time potentially. So one thing I would suggest is framing your message. And what I mean by that is having one overarching mission that then can kind of umbrella over all of your comms. So a really good example that I heard recently was a charity supporting people without homes. Their overarching kind of frame message was that housing is a key component of good health. It shouldn't have anything to do with wealth. It shouldn't have anything to do with class. It is a key component of wealth. Because that's their kind of overarching frame message, all of their comms just has to relate back to that in some way. And having that means that your whole team can put comms out there, whether it's their own personal LinkedIn posts, whether it's when they're talking at networking events and things like that. They'll always be linking back to your overarching message. And it's that repetition of your message that's going to create an impact in the long term. So I don't know if any of you have heard of kind of content pillars. It's a slightly dated way that people used to set out kind of marketing and comms plans. And it means, we're covering these 4 key messages. So all of our comms must relate to at least one of those. And we'll use this pillar will be 30% of our messaging, and it kind of then filtered down like that. This is a far simpler way of doing that. Like I say, it's something that I kind of use. Obviously, our overarching frame is to do with the fact that we're Northamptonshire, we're place-based philanthropy at Northamptonshire Community Foundation. And so if all of our comms relate back to that in some way, we're kind of surreptitiously repeating our messaging, building impacts from that without having too much strategy behind us. And I mean not too much strategy behind us in a good way. And I'll talk more about this. I think probably my most repeated word, ironically, in this session is going to be repetition. I really believe there's nothing wrong with repeating good comms. So yeah, it might just be worth thinking about what your overarching message of your organization could be, and how can you link your communications back to that overarching message. Is that something you could easily communicate with your team internally, just so that next time they're at a networking event, posting on their own LinkedIn, bumping into someone in the street, working with service users, could that be in the back of their minds of just, anything that I kind of bring up here, talk about what we're doing, should just gently link back to this. And I'd also think about what can the rest of your team do to support you. So I know that we've done a lot of work internally at the Community Foundation I've done a lot of work to support the rest of our teams with templates so that they can put together, for example, impact reports for our grant making, so that they can put together newsletters and things like that, so they can have a bit more control over the communications that their team puts out. It takes some pressure and some time off me, but it also means that everyone's singing off the same hymn sheet when it comes to our communications. My next tip, I guess, is to turn supporters into storytellers. Um, User-generated content, so anything that you can get from whether it's your service users, whether it's your staff, can be really engaging, potentially a lot more engaging than your kind of business account repeating messaging over and over again on social media, in press, things like that. It's one of the reasons why having quotes in press releases is really important and tends to be a lot more engaging. To do this, I think it's important to make it really, really easy for your supporters to support you. So one thing I always do is if we get any feedback at all that I see, whether it's in an email, even if it's just like a came to your event, thank you, it was fantastic, I quite often just reply and say, thanks, can I quote you on that? If you do it straight away, you don't have to use that quote straight away. You can save it. You can have a bank of small quotes that you can reach for if you're kind of at a loss next time you need to promote an event you're hosting, an appeal you're running, anything like that. Um, the same goes, I would say, firstly, always ask permission, obviously, to use anyone's words, their photos, anything like that. It's always, even if it's something that they've already posted themselves, on Facebook, for example, it's always a good idea to ask permission to use that content if you're going to kind of repurpose it in something that you're putting out through your organization. Um, I'd recommend keeping a bank, not just of quotes, but of really good photos that are sent to you, even if at the time you don't have any idea really of what you're going to use them for. So it could be you've gone to an event, you've taken loads of fantastic photos, edit a few, brighten them up, have a bank of really good ones that at any point, if you need to put something out quickly or you need to put something out and you don't have the right imagery for it, you have a bank of kind of evergreen, good to use photos. They're great for pulling together impact reports, for kind of livening up social media posts and things like that. And then my last tip here would be if you have trustees, if you have volunteers, if you have ambassadors that are day to day out in the community, talking to people, think about giving them a fact sheet or something along those lines. It's something we always do with our trustees before big events. It firstly means that they're kind of saying what you want them to say. They're going to be on message, they're going to be linking with your colleagues and any comms that you're putting out. It also takes the pressure off them to have to like frantically do lots of research and think, oh no, if someone asked me when the charity was founded, I don't know off the top of my head. Those fact sheets you can just refresh before, I mean, probably maybe once, twice a year, they might need refreshing as your stats change. So if you've fundraised a particular amount, if you've broken a particular record internally, they're just good little bits. It can literally be six little kind of bullet points, facts, just so that, again, you're making it really easy for your supporters, your trustees, your volunteers to then support your organisation. It's also really useful if you have any new people start, new volunteers, new hires, you can hand that out to them as well, just so they get a sense of the kind of messaging you're putting out there too. So, um, don't reinvent the wheel. If you have content that you know works, for example, if you know that video goes down really well on your Instagram and there's a particular video that you shared 3 months ago, it got great traction, reshare it, post it again. You can even use the same caption as long as the dates are correct. You know, if you're talking about an event on a particular date, as long as it hasn't passed. This is another time where it's really useful to have a bank of content that you can reuse, whether it's you always announce a new event in the same way, whether it's you always announce a new appeal in the same way, whether you have a template for an impact report that you put out every year. it's saving you time in the long run. So for us, we have a social post that I created at the beginning of the year that I've probably used 4 times so far this year. It's just about how to apply for a grant. The information's all still accurate, it's all still correct. There's no reason why I can't keep reposting it. It means that when we want to talk to people about how to apply for a grant, I don't have to start from scratch every time. I know some of this seems really, potentially seems quite obvious. I always think sometimes it's nice to have that stuff reinforced. Make your content work harder. So, can you post the same content across multiple social channels? I know that there's a lot of kind of research done that different content works best on different channels. And that is the case a lot of the time. But again, I think if you're a really small or a one-person marketing team, if you're a volunteer, you need to also be thinking about what's the best use of your time, and tweaking content sometimes isn't. Reposting across multiple platforms, getting that message out there might be. So that also means breaking down longer form content, for example. So an example for us would be some event recordings that are 45 minutes long. I might go through and break them down into small snippets that are a bit more shareable on social media. Um, we write a column in the Chronicle and Echo every week where we highlight our community hero of the week. At the end of every month, I pull the community heroes from that month together. They go on our website, in our newsletter, on our social media platforms. It's just thinking about, if you're putting a piece of content out in press, for example, is there the opportunity to reuse that? Could you take that quote that you got from a service user and also post it online? It's important to remember that your audience aren't looking at your Instagram feed, for example, in the way that you do. They're probably not going to notice if something that you posted last week gets posted again in 2 weeks' time. You'll notice, and that's okay, but a lot of your audience won't. And it's just really important to remember that we don't have all the time in the world. And that if it's good content, you can use it again and again. There's no reason why not. I've put here, kindly copy, don't steal. Um, there's a huge network of charities in Northamptonshire for events and maybe awareness days, awareness weeks that impact all of us. So, for example, Volunteers Week just passed, Small Charity Week is coming up next month, I believe, or the end of this month. If you see a charity that's done a really great post, there's no harm in asking, can I borrow that copy? Can I just tweak your copy slightly and use it on our channels? The worst they can say is no, but at least you've asked, and it might work out for you. We, as a community foundation, exist in a wider network of community foundations across the UK. We are always speaking to other community foundations about work that they're doing, comms that they're putting out, and how we can support each other with kind copying, obviously not stealing, and obviously not copying and pasting without permission. Okay, I've got find your audience as my next slide. Can I just check, can you still see my screen? Because my laptop has frozen, but my other screen is still working.
Yeah, I can still see it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So finding your audience, this is where I kind of go back ever so slightly on what I said earlier about not analyzing too much. If you have capacity to analyze the engagement across your social channels, or if you use a platform that can do that for you, for example, a Hootsuite or Buffer, or sometimes Meta Business Suite offers some things. I'm not a fan, but if you've got it and it works for you, use it. Can you see where you get the most engagement? Can you see where most of your service users are compared to potentially your donors? Don't spread yourself too thinly across every single social channel if particular channels aren't working for you. If you're not getting the engagement on a channel, there's absolutely no harm in taking a break from that channel, taking that pressure off yourself, and just seeing what happens. doing that kind of work just a tiny bit to see, okay, for us, for example, we get our most engagement on LinkedIn. I have that information. So if I ever decided to move away from a different platform and focus more attention on LinkedIn, I have information that can back up that decision when I report to our board. If you also have to present to a board, to your trustees, to your manager, it's useful just to know, even if it's top level, well, when we post on Instagram, we get 10% engagement. When we post on LinkedIn, we get 2. It's just potentially useful information, and knowing where your audience is means that you can find what works for you, what content does work where. And again, don't be afraid of repetition. Cross post, put the same information out on various channels. You'll find that our newsletter is a collection of news and content that's gone out throughout that month because it's information that we want to share, we want people to know, and we know that not everyone sees everything that we post. So think about where your audience is, think about where you're getting engagement and focus on those spaces. Try not to get drawn into the trap of there's a new social platform that's just been launched, we need to get on that right now. Sometimes it's useful to make an account so that if in the future that platform blows up and you decide you do want to use it, you have a username on there. But don't spread yourself too thinly. And then on that note, my kind of final point is set manageable goals. So really make sure you're working within your means as a small marketing team. Be realistic with the goals that you set for yourself, for the marketing and the comms that you put out there, partially so that you don't overpromise, say yes to too many things, and to save your own sanity. Think about whether the content you're putting out there is organic, whether you're doing it in-house or whether it's paid for. You know, if you're using PPC ads or sponsored posts, you're going to see different results if you're paying for content than if you're not. Neither one is good or bad, but it's important to keep those kinds of things in mind when you're looking at the results that you're gaining from your content. Just to kind of manage expectations and manage the goals. Work within your means, be really honest about what your capacity is. It's so important, I think, for everybody to avoid burnout, especially kind of creative work. And I think marketing is not typically maybe thought of as a creative job, but it can be really stifling if you kind of overpromise, overwork yourself. Consistency beats perfection and quality beats quantity. So again, really, really think about how can we sustainably show up on these platforms. If that means repeating content, do it. If that means saying to your founder, your chief executive, or someone once a month, can you give me a quote that I can post on social media, just to kind of sustain consistency. And repetition also means sustaining quality content rather than just throwing everything out there. I would also say if you are in the marketing role, you are the marketing expert of your organization. So really do make sure that you're taking the time to think about what the best move is for your organization. So I hope that was helpful. And that's kind of my last page. They're just a few quick tips that I've picked up. I've worked in bigger marketing teams, middle-sized, and now small marketing teams. All of them come with their challenges. And yeah, I hope that was helpful for you.